The stars stretched endlessly across the black canvas of space, a cold, silent expanse where only the hum of distant engines and the occasional flash of weapon fire broke the emptiness. For centuries, the galaxy had been a place of tension, with countless civilizations competing for power, territory, and survival. Yet nothing had prepared anyone for the chaos that was about to unfold. On the edge of the battle zone, a fleet of alien warships moved like a single living entity. Their sleek designs glinted under the light of nearby stars, and their movements were precise, almost mechanical. These were not ordinary soldiers. They were a highly trained force, each vessel capable of devastating entire planets with the wrong strategy. Across the battlefield, smaller human ships darted between debris and laser fire, barely holding their ground. Each human pilot knew the odds were stacked against them. Every maneuver, every shot fired was a gamble with survival hanging in the balance. Inside the command center of the human fleet, the atmosphere was tense, almost suffocating. Officers and commanders crowded around glowing screens, tracking enemy movements, calculating trajectories, and issuing orders. The human fleet was far smaller, far slower, and far less equipped than the alien forces. Yet despite the overwhelming odds, there was determination. There was grit. There was hope, however faint, burning in every mind aboard the human ships. The commander of the human fleet, a tall figure with a sharp gaze and calm demeanor, stood silently for a moment, staring at the holographic display of the battlefield. He could see dozens of alien cruisers advancing with deadly precision. Entire human wings had already been lost in the first waves of attack. Explosions flashed across the void, leaving trails of burning debris that drifted like silent ghosts. Each loss was a reminder of how fragile their position was, yet surrender was never an option. Below deck, pilots strapped into their cockpits, hearts pounding, hands trembling slightly over controls. They were the youngest, the bravest, the ones who would face death head-on while others coordinated from afar. Some had barely enough experience to survive training, but in these moments experience mattered less than instinct. Every pilot knew that even a single mistake could cost not only their life, but the lives of everyone fighting beside them. A sudden flash lit up the radar screens. It was a small blip, almost unnoticeable compared to the swarming alien vessels. The officers leaned in, curious, trying to identify it. "What is that?" someone whispered, their voice barely audible over the hum of the systems. It was too small to be a threat, yet it moved differently. Fast, deliberate, confident. The commander frowned, studying the unknown vessel. It was heading straight toward the heart of the battle, a place where most ships feared to venture. No human craft should have survived this far without being destroyed. The others around him exchanged worried glances. Could it be a mistake, or perhaps a desperate ship lost from the main fleet? Whatever it was, it moved with a purpose that made the humans uneasy yet curious. Meanwhile, across the battlefield, the alien forces noticed the small intruder as well. Their advanced sensors detected it instantly, and alarms blared across the bridges of their command ships. Officers shouted orders in a strange language that echoed through the hulls. The blip was unlike anything they had seen, a single human vessel moving where dozens should have been destroyed already. Their curiosity turned to caution, then suspicion. Was this some trap, or worse, an unknown weapon they had underestimated? Back on the human ships, tension rose as the unknown vessel continued its approach. Some whispered about luck, others about fate. Few dared to hope, but hope had a way of sneaking in even in the darkest moments. The commander remained silent, watching intently as the vessel drew closer. There was something different about it, something that suggested it could change the course of the battle entirely. The surrounding chaos made everything feel unreal. Explosions lit up the void in sudden bursts. Ships collided and were ripped apart, and flares of energy streaked across the darkness. Each human pilot maneuvered desperately, trying to avoid both debris and enemy fire. Every second felt like an hour, and every decision could mean life or death. Yet through the turmoil, the small vessel continued its unbroken path, weaving between destruction as if guided by an invisible hand. Inside that vessel, the pilot remained calm, almost eerily so. Trained to perfection, every movement was calculated, precise, and intentional. There was no fear, no hesitation. The pilot knew that the fleet relied not only on numbers but on strategy and courage. And in this moment, courage alone could tip the balance. As the unknown vessel neared the first line of alien ships, the human fleet could hardly believe what they were seeing. Every commander felt a surge of mixed emotions, fear, curiosity, and a spark of hope. Could one small ship really make a difference in a battle that seemed impossible to win? The answer was about to reveal itself. On the alien side, panic began to ripple through their ranks. Reports came in from multiple sensors. The single vessel was not only surviving but maneuvering in ways their technology had predicted as impossible. Officers barked orders to intercept, to focus fire, to eliminate the threat before it reached the core of their formation. Yet despite overwhelming firepower, the vessel moved with unshakable precision, dodging attacks as if it anticipated every strike before it happened. Back in the human command center, the mood shifted slightly. Hope began to replace despair, and the officers watched with bated breath. There was something extraordinary happening, something that defied logic. Every human crew member, every pilot felt it in their bones. This was no ordinary ship. This was a turning point, a spark that could ignite a victory long thought impossible. The stars seemed to blur around the vessel as it moved faster and faster, approaching the heart of the battle. Alien ships scrambled to adjust, but it was too late. The calm determination of a single human pilot contrasted sharply with the chaotic panic of the massive alien fleet. It was a silent promise that no matter how dire the situation, courage and skill could make a difference. Even as explosions and chaos surrounded it, the vessel pressed on, unyielding. The pilot's hands moved with precision, every decision deliberate, every action calculated. It was a testament to human resilience, ingenuity, and determination. And though no one yet knew what would happen next, every eye watching knew that something monumental was about to unfold, a moment that would be remembered as the day when one human vessel entered a battle and changed everything. The tension in the human command center was almost unbearable. Some whispered prayers, others simply held their breath. No one spoke for fear of breaking the fragile thread of hope that now hung in the air. The stars stretched endlessly and the battle raged on, but all eyes were on the small, unstoppable vessel that moved like a force of destiny. Time seemed to slow. The human fleet, battered and weary, watched as the unknown vessel approached the alien front lines. There was no turning back. The moment of truth had arrived, and though silence reigned over the command centers, hearts beat in unison, knowing that history was being written, one precise movement at a time. The unknown vessel moved like a shadow among the chaos of the battlefield, small yet impossible to ignore. Every human aboard the fleet could hardly believe what they were seeing. Ships that had been battered, damaged, or almost destroyed suddenly seemed to regain a spark of hope as the lone craft drew closer to the heart of the alien formation. Inside the human command center, officers and pilots leaned over screens, whispering to each other in disbelief. "It's still moving." "How?" one murmured. The commander's gaze was fixed, unblinking, as though he could see beyond the holographic display, beyond the swirling lasers and explosions, into the very heart of what this ship could do. There was a strange mix of fear and anticipation. Every human knew that this small ship could be humanity's last hope, but no one yet understood the full extent of its power. The alien forces, on the other hand, were in complete disarray. Reports flooded in from the forward scouts and sensors. "It's dodging everything," one officer shouted. "Focus fire! Don't let it reach the center." Another officer banged the control panel, frustration clear in every movement. Their fleet, which had been a perfectly coordinated machine moments ago, was now in chaos. Every strategy they had relied on seemed useless against this single precise ship. In the pilot's cockpit, the atmosphere was calm, almost eerily so. Despite the chaos outside, every movement was deliberate, every calculation exact. The pilot had been trained for this moment, not only to survive but to change the course of the battle. Years of preparation, countless simulations, and intense study of alien tactics had led to this single chance. There was no hesitation, no second-guessing. The only focus was the objective: reach the heart of the enemy formation and create an opportunity that would save countless lives. As the vessel advanced, smaller alien patrol ships tried to intercept it. They fired energy beams and missiles in coordinated volleys, expecting to overwhelm the intruder. But the human vessel was faster, moving in ways that made the alien ship's attacks miss by mere inches. The human fleet watched in awe as the vessel weaved between fire and explosions, its movements almost like a dance, a dangerous, deadly dance that left destruction behind without touching its target. From the alien perspective, panic had set in. Officers shouted orders that conflicted with one another. Some called for retreat, others for concentrated fire. "It cannot be destroyed," one commander screamed, his voice cracking under the pressure. "It's just one ship." Another officer argued that there must be a hidden fleet or trap, but no evidence appeared. The ship moved with surgical precision, and with every second it became clear that their forces were not prepared for this. Meanwhile, within the human fleet, excitement began to replace the tension. Pilots who had been hiding behind debris or engaging in desperate evasive maneuvers now allowed themselves a small spark of hope. Every movement of the lone vessel showed not only courage but also intelligence. It wasn't reckless. It wasn't random. Every turn, every dodge, every advance was calculated to maximize impact and minimize risk. Even the human commander felt a sense of relief, tempered with caution. One ship could not end a battle alone, but this one seemed like it could. The vessel reached the outer edge of the alien formation. Dozens of enemy ships lined up to block its path, their weapons trained and ready. The human vessel paused just for a moment, almost imperceptibly as if scanning the battlefield one last time. Then in a blink it moved with breathtaking speed. Energy shields shimmered around alien ships, warning of incoming attacks, but the vessel was already past them. In seconds, it had cut a path through the first line, leaving damaged but still operational ships behind, unable to comprehend what had just happened. For the human fleet, the sight was almost magical. Pilots and officers cheered even as the battle raged on. The impossible was happening. One ship, moving with a mix of precision, courage, and skill, was turning the tide. Every human aboard, from the youngest pilot to the highest-ranking officer, felt a renewed sense of purpose. They realized that hope was no longer just an abstract concept. It was moving in real time across the battlefield. The alien forces scrambled. They sent waves of fighters, heavier cruisers, even experimental warships to intercept the human vessel. Yet nothing could stop it. Missiles detonated harmlessly against its shields. Energy beams passed by as the vessel twisted and turned in impossible maneuvers. Each attack that failed to land added to the confusion and panic among the alien ranks. Orders were shouted frantically, but coordination had broken down. What had once been a disciplined fleet was now a flurry of disorganized ships, each trying desperately to cover the others. Inside the cockpit, the pilot's focus never wavered. Hands moved with precision, adjusting speed, angle, and trajectory in milliseconds. Every decision was informed by years of training and intuition, honed in simulations and real combat. There was no ego, no desire for glory, only the mission, only the goal. Every human watching this unfold could feel it. This was courage in its purest form, a testament to human determination in the face of overwhelming odds. As the vessel advanced deeper into the enemy formation, it began to target key points. Communication arrays, energy generators, and weapon control systems were hit with pinpoint accuracy. Alien ships that had seemed untouchable were now faltering, their shields flickering and weapons going offline. The alien commanders could only watch in disbelief as their perfectly coordinated fleet began to collapse from within. The lone human vessel wasn't just surviving, it was systematically dismantling the enemy's ability to fight. The human fleet, inspired by what they were witnessing, began to take bolder actions. Ships that had been hiding or retreating now moved forward to engage the enemy, taking advantage of the confusion created by the single vessel. For the first time in the battle, humans were not just surviving, they were controlling the flow of combat. It was a turning point, subtle yet undeniable, and all because of one small but incredibly effective ship. Alien officers tried desperately to regroup, calling for reinforcements and new strategies. But every move they made seemed anticipated. The human vessel danced through their defenses, striking precisely where it was most effective. What had started as a chance encounter with a small ship had turned into a demonstration of strategy, intelligence, and courage that the alien forces were completely unprepared for. The pressure was immense, yet the pilot remained composed. Every pilot and crew member in the human fleet could feel the significance of this moment. This wasn't just about survival. This was about demonstrating what humans were capable of when faced with impossible odds. There was a silent understanding that history was being written, not with fleets and armies, but with focus, skill, and unwavering determination. Time seemed to stretch as the vessel moved deeper into the alien formation. Explosions flashed around it. Pieces of destroyed ships floated in the void, and the hum of energy weapons filled the air. Yet the vessel remained untouched, a single point of calm amid chaos. Every human aboard every ship held their breath, watching in disbelief. They had seen courage before and heroism, but nothing like this. Nothing so small, so alone, could have such an impact on the battlefield. Then, without warning, the vessel struck its first major target. The alien cruiser at the center of the formation exploded in a burst of energy and debris, sending shockwaves across the surrounding ships. Shields failed, communications went silent, and panic spread like wildfire. The human fleet erupted in cheers, though cautiously, for they knew the battle was not over. Still, this single strike had changed everything. Alien officers shouted in rage, disbelief written across every face and voice. "It is impossible!" one screamed. "A single ship should not be able to do this." The fleet scrambled to adjust, but the damage was done. The first domino had fallen, and with it, the carefully constructed order of the alien forces began to crumble. Inside the human command center, there was a mixture of relief and awe. The commander allowed a small nod, a rare expression of pride. Every officer and pilot felt it. This was more than a fight for survival. This was a statement. This was what humans could achieve when courage, skill, and determination converged into a single point of action. One ship, moving with purpose, had not only survived but had begun to turn the tide of battle in ways no one had expected. The unknown vessel moved on, leaving destruction behind and chaos ahead for the alien fleet. Every maneuver, every strike was a masterclass in strategy and precision. The human fleet followed cautiously, inspired by the courage they were witnessing. And though the battle raged on around them, a new sense of hope had taken root. It was clear to everyone watching that this single vessel could not just survive the battle, it could shape its outcome. And as it continued to advance, calm and unyielding, there was an unspoken understanding that history would remember this moment, this single human vessel, and the courage it represented. The small human vessel had reached the outer edge of the alien fleet, and for the first time everyone watching realized that this was no ordinary ship. It moved with a precision that seemed almost impossible. Every turn, every acceleration, and every pause was calculated to the smallest detail. For the human fleet, it was both inspiring and terrifying. They were witnessing something that defied all expectations. Inside the cockpit, the pilot's hands moved with calm, deliberate precision. There was no hesitation, no panic, only focus. Sensors and displays flickered with readings, warnings, and alerts. But the pilot seemed to filter through them effortlessly, processing each one instantly. This was a level of skill that could only come from countless hours of training, experience, and instinct. Every movement of the ship was designed to survive, to protect the fleet, and to create an opening in the enemy line. The alien fleet, on the other hand, was beginning to crumble under the sheer audacity of this small vessel. Officers barked orders frantically, but nothing seemed to work. Interceptor ships attempted to block its path, but missiles and energy beams passed harmlessly as the vessel twisted and moved at impossible speeds. The aliens were not used to an enemy that could anticipate and evade attacks so effectively. Confusion rippled through their ranks, and even the most experienced commanders found themselves at a loss. The human vessel approached the first line of alien cruisers. From the outside, it appeared small, almost fragile, against the massive ships of the enemy. Yet its presence alone seemed to create an imbalance. Sensors and shields of the alien vessels detected it, but no combination of weapons could predict its next move. It darted between missiles, dodged energy beams, and moved in ways that left the alien fleet struggling to react. Inside the human fleet, every eye was fixed on the vessel. Pilots held their breath as the tiny ship carved a path through the enemy. For some, it was disbelief. How could one small vessel move with such speed and precision, surviving attacks that had destroyed larger ships in seconds? For others, it was hope, the kind of hope that only comes when everything seems lost, and yet one act could change the entire course of events. Then, the vessel paused just long enough to assess its surroundings. It was a brief moment, almost imperceptible, but it was enough to make the human fleet realize the intelligence behind each movement. The pilot was not acting on instinct alone, but on strategy. It was calculating, evaluating, and selecting the most critical targets. Ships that controlled weapons, communication arrays, and energy distribution. Every strike was chosen to maximize the impact and create the greatest chaos in the enemy ranks. Without warning, the vessel launched its first strike. Energy surged and a massive alien cruiser erupted in flames. Debris flew outward, scattering smaller ships in all directions. The explosion was so sudden and precise that the surrounding fleet had no time to react. For a moment, there was stunned silence among the alien commanders. Then chaos erupted. Ships tried to regroup, but the damage had been done. Their formation was broken, and panic spread like wildfire. The human fleet watched in awe. What had started as hope had now become something tangible. This single vessel, against impossible odds, had struck the first decisive blow. Every human pilot felt a surge of pride and determination. They realized that survival was no longer about evasion and defense. It was about fighting back, inspired by the courage and skill of this one ship. Alien officers scrambled desperately. "Target it! Destroy it at all costs!" one yelled, pounding the control panel. Waves of fighters and missile barrages were sent toward the human vessel. Yet the pilot anticipated each attack, weaving between incoming fire with skill that seemed almost supernatural. Shields held, energy cores remained stable, and the vessel moved deeper into the enemy fleet. The pilot's focus never wavered. Each strike against alien cruisers was precise, targeting critical systems without wasting energy or effort. Communication arrays went offline, energy distribution failed, and weapons control systems were disabled one by one. The fleet was falling apart from the inside, unable to respond effectively to an enemy it could neither predict nor overpower. From the human fleet's perspective, it was a turning point. Ships that had been hesitant now moved forward to take advantage of the chaos. Smaller groups of humans coordinated attacks on weakened alien ships, inspired by the daring maneuvers of the lone vessel. What had seemed like an impossible battle now showed cracks in the alien defenses, openings that could be exploited for the first time. The alien fleet was in disarray. Officers shouted over each other, trying to regain control. Some suggested retreat, others attempted desperate counterattacks, but nothing worked. The single human vessel had created a ripple of disruption that could not be contained. Confidence that had once been absolute now turned to fear, uncertainty, and confusion. Inside the cockpit, the pilot remained calm. There was no thrill, no excitement, only focus on the mission. Every movement was deliberate, calculated to achieve maximum effect with minimal risk. The vessel moved like a masterful chess piece, striking where it mattered most and avoiding every trap. Every human watching understood, even without words, that this was not luck. This was skill, courage, and unwavering determination in action. The vessel targeted a group of alien cruisers attempting to regroup. One by one, critical systems were disabled. Shields flickered and died, engines faltered, and weapons became useless. The fleet, which had seemed invincible moments ago, was now struggling to function. Panic spread among the alien pilots as orders went unheeded, and coordination collapsed entirely. For the human fleet, excitement grew. Pilots began maneuvering more aggressively, firing with renewed confidence and supporting each other in ways that had been impossible before. The lone vessel had changed everything. It had proven that strategy, courage, and skill could overcome even the greatest disadvantages. Humans were no longer just defending, they were now taking control of the battlefield. The alien fleet made one last desperate attempt to regroup. Heavy cruisers and advanced fighters moved to flank the human vessel. But the pilot anticipated every move. Missiles and energy blasts were avoided with careful precision, and every counterattack was launched with deadly accuracy. One after another, alien ships fell, their shields broken, weapons destroyed, and engines disabled. The panic was total. Inside the human command center, officers allowed themselves small smiles. They had feared the worst, but now there was hope. One ship alone had done what they could not have imagined. It had struck a decisive blow, disrupted the enemy, and created opportunities for the human fleet. It was a moment of pride, a moment of awe, and a moment that would be remembered. The human vessel pressed forward, moving deeper into the alien formation. Every maneuver was a combination of skill and strategy. Systems were analyzed in real time, and the pilot struck exactly where it would cause the most damage. Alien ships that had once been confident and coordinated were now falling apart, their crews scrambling to survive. The human fleet followed cautiously, inspired by what they were seeing. Ships moved forward to support weakened enemies, taking advantage of the chaos. Every human pilot understood that this moment could decide the outcome of the entire battle. The courage and skill of one vessel had given them the edge they had been hoping for. As the vessel moved through the battlefield, the alien fleet began to fracture completely. Ships that had tried to hold their positions now fled or were destroyed. The first wave of human pilots joined the fight with renewed confidence, striking at weakened targets and following the path cleared by the lone vessel. Victory, once unimaginable, now seemed possible. The pilots' calm determination and skill were evident in every movement. Each strike was precise, each dodge calculated. There was no panic, no hesitation, only the mission. And with each success, the alien fleet grew more desperate, more confused, and more vulnerable. The human vessel had become more than just a ship. It had become a symbol of courage, skill, and the belief that even the smallest force could change the course of history. Every human watching felt that same pride and determination, understanding that they were witnessing something extraordinary. As Part 3 drew to a close, the vessel had already destroyed or disabled multiple key enemy ships. Chaos reigned in the alien ranks, and the human fleet moved forward with renewed purpose. One small ship, guided by skill and courage, had begun to turn the tide of an impossible battle. The stage was set for even greater action to come, as the human vessel prepared to strike at the heart of the enemy forces. The battlefield was no longer the same as it had been at the beginning of the engagement. Where once the alien fleet had moved with calculated precision, there was now chaos. Ships were scattered, formations broken, and communications scrambled. The human vessel had carved a path through the enemy's strongest lines, and every movement it made seemed to destabilize the aliens further. Inside the human fleet, excitement mixed with disbelief. Pilots who had been cornered behind debris, desperately dodging fire, now took advantage of the confusion. They moved forward with renewed determination, firing at weakened targets and supporting each other in ways they had not dared before. The lone vessel had done more than survive. It had created opportunities, opened gaps, and inspired courage. The pilot of the human vessel remained focused, calm, and precise. Every maneuver, every shot was calculated. Systems were monitored, energy reserves conserved, and targets chosen with care. It was not reckless action. It was strategy in motion, the kind of skill that turned fear into hope. Every human watching could see it. This was a craft guided by intelligence, training, and sheer determination. The alien fleet, however, was falling apart from within. Officers shouted orders frantically, attempting to regain control, but their commands were inconsistent. Ships that had been reliable were now scattered, some retreating, others destroyed, and many struggling to operate as key systems failed. The confusion created by the lone vessel was not just physical, it was psychological. Alien pilots trained for precision and coordination were now acting out of panic and fear. The human vessel moved through the chaos like a masterful strategist. It targeted energy generators, weapon systems, and communication arrays. Each strike was precise, designed to disable as much of the fleet as possible with minimal effort. The effects were immediate. Shields flickered and failed, weapons went offline, and the alien ships that had once been dominant were now vulnerable. From the human command center, the scene was awe-inspiring. Officers and pilots watched every move with bated breath. The small ship, alone against overwhelming odds, had become a turning point. The human fleet, previously defensive and hesitant, now advanced with confidence. Every strike, every maneuver seemed to embolden the human forces, who finally felt that victory was within reach. The alien commanders attempted to regroup, but their efforts were ineffective. Orders conflicted, ships collided, and systems failed. The fleet was disorganized, reacting to a threat it could neither predict nor contain. The single human vessel had turned the battlefield upside down, and with each movement the chaos spread further. Inside the cockpit, the pilot's concentration never wavered. Hands moved with precision over the controls, adjusting speed, direction, and weapons targeting in real time. Every maneuver was designed to maximize impact while avoiding unnecessary risk. The vessel moved with grace and deadly efficiency, a single point of calm in a storm of destruction. The pilot targeted a cluster of alien cruisers that had been attempting to regroup and form a defensive line. With pinpoint accuracy, Energy blasts disabled their engines and weapon systems. Communication arrays were destroyed, leaving the ships isolated. Panic swept through the crews of these vessels, and for the first time, many realized that their advantage had vanished. The human fleet seized the opportunity. Smaller ships advanced to exploit the gaps created by the lone vessel. Firing sequences became coordinated and confident, with pilots trusting their instincts and the openings created by the vessel's maneuvers. The once overwhelming alien fleet now struggled to respond to coordinated human attacks. Alien officers shouted in desperation, "Focus on it! Destroy that ship!" Commands echoed across bridges, but confusion prevented any real coordination. Each wave of attack was met with precise evasion, and the human vessel continued to dismantle the fleet systematically. It was not simply surviving, it was controlling the battlefield, dictating the flow of combat, and striking where it mattered most. The destruction caused by the vessel was strategic, not random. Power cores, weapons arrays, and shield generators were disabled first, leaving ships operational but defenseless. Engines faltered, communication lines went down, and the aliens' ability to coordinate fell apart completely. Each strike created a ripple effect, making the next target easier to defeat. The human fleet followed cautiously but with confidence. Pilots moved forward, taking advantage of the chaos created by the vessel. Some had been defensive or hiding earlier, but now they advanced, striking at weakened targets and supporting each other. The small vessel had shifted the balance of the battle. It was no longer a desperate struggle. It was a fight the humans could influence. In the alien fleet, frustration and fear dominated. Officers argued, trying to find a solution. "It cannot be allowed to continue," one screamed. "We cannot lose to a single ship." Yet every attempt to counter the vessel failed. Missiles were dodged, energy blasts avoided, and ships that attempted to flank were disabled before they could act. The alien fleet was unprepared for such precision and determination. The human vessel moved toward the core of the enemy formation. Its approach was calm but deliberate, each maneuver calculated to maximize disruption. Systems were monitored constantly, energy conserved, and targets chosen with precision. Every strike further weakened the fleet, and every successful maneuver increased confidence in the human forces. Inside the human command center, officers watched in awe as the vessel continued its systematic dismantling of the alien fleet. Each move was calculated, precise, and effective. The human pilots felt inspired, understanding that the small ship was not just surviving, it was shaping the course of the battle. Courage and skill were now the guiding forces, not luck or sheer numbers. The alien fleet continued to crumble. Defensive lines were broken, weapon systems offline, and ships isolated. Panic spread among the alien pilots, some attempting to flee, others destroyed by the precise strikes of the human vessel. It was clear that the tide of battle had shifted. The once dominant fleet was now vulnerable, reacting rather than acting. The human vessel continued its methodical advance. Every move was a demonstration of skill, strategy, and courage. It avoided unnecessary risks while creating maximum disruption. Each strike disabled key systems, leaving the alien ships vulnerable and confused. The human fleet followed, taking advantage of the openings and advancing with renewed confidence. The alien commanders tried one last desperate strategy. Heavy cruisers and advanced fighters were sent to intercept the human vessel. Missiles and energy blasts surged toward it, but the pilot anticipated every move. The vessel twisted, dodged, and countered with precision strikes. Each attack that failed added to the chaos and panic among the alien forces. For the human fleet, the scene was inspiring. Pilots who had been hiding, retreating, or acting defensively now moved boldly. They took advantage of the confusion, striking at weakened targets and supporting each other. The single vessel had changed the dynamic of the battle entirely, proving that skill, strategy, and courage could overcome even overwhelming odds. As the human vessel advanced deeper into the enemy formation, the alien fleet collapsed further. Ships were destroyed or disabled, and coordination was nearly impossible. Panic and confusion spread like wildfire. Orders were shouted but went unheeded. The fleet that had once seemed invincible now struggled to survive. The human vessel moved with calm precision, striking at critical targets and avoiding unnecessary risk. Each movement was deliberate, each strike calculated to maximize impact. The alien fleet, once dominant, was now in total disarray. The human pilot's skill and courage had shifted the battlefield completely. The human fleet, inspired and confident, advanced steadily. Every opening created by the lone vessel was exploited. Smaller ships attacked weakened enemies, supporting each other and coordinating their efforts. The battle, once a desperate struggle, had now become a fight humans could influence. The alien commanders realized too late that their advantage was gone. Their formations were broken, their ships disabled, and their crews panicked. The single human vessel had done what their entire fleet had been unable to do. It had disrupted, dismantled, and dominated the battlefield. And through it all, the pilot remained calm. There was no fear, no excitement, only focus on the mission. Every movement, every strike, every decision was calculated. The vessel moved with precision, turning chaos into opportunity, fear into hope, and a desperate battle into a fight humans could win. The stage was set for the next phase of the battle. The human vessel had done more than survive, it had systematically turned the tide. The alien fleet was vulnerable, disorganized, and confused. The human fleet, inspired and confident, was ready to strike. And the pilot of the lone vessel, calm and precise, prepared for the next decisive moment that could end the battle entirely. The battlefield was a shattered mosaic of debris, smoke, and broken alien ships. What had once been a highly coordinated and intimidating fleet was now a chaotic jumble of drifting cruisers, disabled warships, and desperate pilots scrambling to survive. The human vessel, small yet unstoppable, had cut a path through the chaos like a force of destiny. From the human fleet's perspective, there was a mixture of awe and anticipation. Every pilot, every officer watched the lone ship move deeper into the enemy formation. There was a silent understanding. The moment of truth had arrived. The alien flagship, the core of their fleet, the symbol of their command and power, was within reach. Destroy it and the battle could end instantly. The human vessel, calm and precise, was moving toward that very target. Inside the cockpit, the pilot's focus was absolute. There were no distractions, no hesitation, no thrill-seeking. Every movement, every calculation was precise. Sensors monitored energy flows, shield strength, and enemy positions. Every step was carefully considered. The pilot knew that one mistake here could mean the destruction of the ship, and possibly the entire human fleet. Yet confidence and skill combined to create an almost serene determination. The alien flagship was imposing, larger and more heavily armed than anything the human vessel had faced before. Its shield shimmered with energy, and weapons arrays scanned the battlefield, attempting to predict the intruder's next move. Officers on the bridge shouted orders frantically, trying to coordinate the remaining fleet to protect the command ship. Yet chaos had already taken root. Smaller ships that were meant to defend the flagship were disabled or destroyed, and many pilots were already retreating or panicked. The human vessel approached steadily. It was not a reckless rush. It was a calculated advance, analyzing weak points, predicting enemy responses, and preparing to strike at the most critical systems. The alien flagship detected the approach and activated its defensive systems fully, firing volleys of energy blasts, launching interceptors, and targeting every angle. But the human pilot was prepared. Each movement was timed, precise, and deliberate. Missiles streaked past harmlessly. Energy beams swept by as the vessel twisted and dodged, and enemy interceptors were neutralized before they could even reach the ship. Inside the alien flagship, panic was growing. Officers shouted over one another, blaming mistakes, miscalculating threats, and issuing orders too late. The fleet that had been confident and invincible moments ago was now terrified of a single human vessel. The psychological impact was as real as the physical destruction. Fear had crept into their ranks, and with fear came mistakes. The human vessel seized its moment. It moved in close to the flagship, targeting energy generators first. With a precise strike, the generator controlling the primary shield faltered, sparks flying across the enemy ship's hull. Systems overloaded, alarms blared, and the shields flickered dangerously. The flagship's crew struggled to maintain control, sending repeated commands that could not be executed fast enough. Chaos had reached the very heart of their command. The human vessel didn't stop. With the shields weakened, it fired at the weapon control systems, disabling energy cannons, turrets, and targeting arrays. Explosions erupted across the flagship's surface, throwing the remaining alien pilots into disarray. Each critical system that went offline made the enemy flagship more vulnerable, more unstable, and more susceptible to destruction. From the human fleet, cheers and gasps of disbelief could be heard over comms. The single vessel had made the impossible look effortless. Pilots who had once been defensive or cautious now moved forward, striking at weakened alien ships, capitalizing on the openings created by the lone vessel. What had been a desperate battle was now turning into a moment of opportunity and hope. The alien flagship attempted a desperate counterattack. Massive energy blasts targeted the human vessel, hoping to overwhelm it before it could deliver the decisive blow. Fighters swarmed, missiles filled the void, and weapon systems focused every effort on the intruder. But the pilot was unshakable. Every maneuver, every dodge, every counterstrike was calculated with perfect timing. Missiles were evaded, interceptors destroyed, and energy blasts avoided, leaving the flagship's weapons wasted and the crew panicked. Inside the cockpit, the pilot's focus remained unbroken. Sensors displayed the enemy's critical weaknesses, shield fluctuations, and weapon cooldowns. Every strike, every movement was precise, designed to neutralize the flagship's defenses completely. The pilot had trained for moments like this, combining skill, intuition, and experience to turn strategy into reality. Then came the final approach. The human vessel moved directly to the heart of the flagship, the command center itself. Shields were down, weapons disabled, and the alien crew was desperate, shouting orders that no longer mattered. The human ship struck with precision, targeting the core systems that powered the flagship. Energy exploded outward, tearing through the hull, destroying critical machinery and sending shockwaves across the remaining fleet. The flagship shuddered violently, alarms screaming in every corridor. Pilots scrambled in confusion, trying to stabilize the ship, but it was too late. Power systems failed completely, weapons went offline, and the ship began to drift uncontrollably. The alien fleet, witnessing the destruction of their command ship, erupted into panic. Without their flagship, coordination collapsed entirely. Retreats, collisions, and further destruction followed in rapid succession. The human fleet watched, stunned and exhilarated. The single vessel had done what no one thought possible. It had ended the heart of the enemy fleet. A small ship, guided by skill, courage, and determination, had dismantled the most powerful ship in the alien forces, effectively ending the battle in one decisive strike. In the cockpit, the pilot remained calm despite the chaos surrounding them. There was no celebration, no distraction, only focus. The vessel continued to maneuver through the battlefield, ensuring that the destruction of the flagship did not leave the human fleet vulnerable. Every movement was precise, every strike intentional, maintaining control of the situation until the threat had been neutralized entirely. The alien forces, now leaderless and disoriented, scattered in all directions. Ships that had remained intact fled, attempting to escape the battlefield. Many were destroyed in the process, unable to operate effectively without orders. Those that survived carried the story of defeat back to their home worlds, a story that would be remembered for generations, the day a single human vessel ended the battle instantly. The human fleet, emboldened by the actions of the lone ship, advanced steadily. Damaged ships were protected, weak points were exploited, and the remaining alien vessels were either captured or destroyed. The battle, once hopeless, had been turned into a human victory, achieved not through numbers or brute force, but through skill, courage, and precision. From the command center of the human fleet, officers and pilots celebrated quietly but with immense pride. They had witnessed something extraordinary, a single vessel, a single pilot, changing the course of history in one decisive action. Hope had turned into reality, despair had turned into triumph, and the impossible had been made possible. The battlefield slowly quieted. Fires burned across drifting ships, debris floated in the void, and the silence after the storm was almost deafening. Yet amidst the wreckage, the human vessel stood as a symbol of skill, determination, and courage. It had achieved what seemed impossible, not through luck or overwhelming force, but through focus, strategy, and unwavering resolve. As Part 5 drew to a close, the human fleet regrouped, assessing the aftermath of the battle. Pilots returned to formation, commanders recalculated strategies, and the lone vessel remained at the forefront, a silent guardian ensuring the victory was complete. Every human aboard every ship understood that they had witnessed history, and that one courageous pilot had changed everything with a single, decisive action. The battlefield was quiet now, but it was a silence unlike any before. The void of space stretched endlessly, punctuated by drifting debris and the flicker of distant stars. What had been a chaotic storm of fire, energy, and destruction was now a field of stillness, as if the galaxy itself was pausing to witness what had just occurred. The alien fleet, once proud and dominant, had been shattered. The human forces, battered but alive, hovered cautiously among the wreckage, taking stock of the victory that had been won. At the heart of this achievement was a single vessel, the one that had entered the battle and changed its course forever. Despite its small size, it had accomplished what entire fleets had failed to do. The pilot, calm and focused even after hours of intense combat, guided the vessel slowly through the aftermath, ensuring that no threats remained. Every move was deliberate, protecting allies, surveying debris, and keeping the remaining alien ships at bay. Inside the human command center, officers and pilots allowed themselves the first real moments of relief. Many slumped in their chairs, exhausted from the tension of the battle. Others stood silently, staring at the monitors that displayed the destruction they had wrought. Even in victory, there was a sense of disbelief. One ship, small and seemingly fragile, had done what the combined strength of their forces had struggled to achieve. Pride swelled quietly among the humans, but it was tempered with respect for the skill and courage that had made this possible. The alien survivors were scattered, confused, and leaderless. Some attempted to communicate with their home worlds, but the network of command had been destroyed. Others drifted in silence, unsure whether to flee, surrender, or continue fighting. The psychological impact of the lone human vessel had been as powerful as its physical strikes. It had not only destroyed their ships, but also their confidence and coordination. For the aliens, this was a defeat that would be remembered as long as their records existed. Back on the human side, ships began to regroup and repair what could be salvaged. Teams moved through the fleet, assisting damaged vessels, sharing fuel and energy reserves, and tending to minor repairs. Pilots and crew checked in with one another, confirming that everyone had survived. The battlefield, though still dangerous, was now a place of recovery rather than chaos. Amid this calm, the lone vessel remained vigilant. The pilot scanned the area, ensuring that no hidden dangers remained and that the alien forces were truly neutralized. Every system was checked, weapons and shields calibrated, and communication links established to the rest of the fleet. The pilot's focus was steady, not because of threat, but because of responsibility. The mission was not over until the battle was fully secured, and the human fleet could operate safely. In the aftermath, there was a sense of quiet reflection among the humans. They had witnessed courage, skill, and determination on a level few could have imagined. Stories would be told, retold, and remembered for generations. How a single human vessel had entered a battle against overwhelming odds and ended it instantly. The lesson was clear: courage, intelligence, and focus could triumph where numbers and firepower alone might fail. The surviving alien ships attempted to flee, but most were either too damaged or too disorganized to escape efficiently. Some were intercepted by the remaining human forces and disabled or captured. Others retreated into deep space, carrying back stories of the small vessel that had done the impossible. Across the galaxy, the reputation of humanity would grow, fueled by the account of this single decisive action. Inside the pilot's cockpit, there was a quiet satisfaction. There was no celebration, no boasting, no need for accolades. The mission had been accomplished, and the pilot's duty was complete. Every maneuver, every strike, every decision had been made with precision, courage, and purpose. And in this quiet moment, there was a profound sense of achievement, not just for winning the battle, but for the knowledge that focus and determination could change the course of history. Across the human fleet, morale soared. Pilots who had been inexperienced or fearful during the battle now felt inspired. Officers, engineers, and crew members saw what determination and skill could achieve. The victory was not just tactical, it was symbolic. Humanity had proven that even in the face of overwhelming odds, courage and intelligence could prevail. Recovery efforts began in earnest. Ships repaired what could be fixed, debris was cleared, and energy reserves were redistributed. Communication channels were opened across the fleet to ensure that every vessel was accounted for. The battle had been won, but there was still work to do. The human fleet had survived, but the lesson remained clear. Preparation, skill, and bravery were as important as technology and numbers. The alien perspective, Meanwhile was one of confusion, fear, and reflection. Their fleet had been shattered, their command destroyed, and their confidence broken. Survivors would carry the story of the lone human vessel across systems, recounting how one ship, small and precise, had dismantled what they had considered unstoppable. It was a lesson that would echo for generations in alien military archives. Never underestimate determination, focus, and skill. Back with the humans, gratitude and recognition quietly spread. Pilots congratulated one another, engineers shared relief, and commanders took a moment to acknowledge the bravery that had changed everything. There was no public display of triumph, no grand ceremony, yet the sense of accomplishment was profound. Everyone knew they had witnessed history, and everyone understood the extraordinary courage that had made victory possible. The pilot, still at the forefront, navigated through the debris carefully. Even now, there was caution. Wreckage drifted unpredictably, and energy fluctuations from destroyed ships could be dangerous. But the calm, calculated movements continued, ensuring the safety of both the vessel and the fleet. Every human watching knew that the pilot's focus had been as important as the firepower that destroyed the enemy. As the hours passed, the human fleet consolidated its gains. Ships were repaired, crews rested, and communication lines were fully restored. The battlefield, once a place of fear and destruction, became a site of strategy, recovery, and reflection. Humanity had survived and prevailed, but it was the courage, skill, and determination of one vessel that had truly secured the victory. Stories began to form instantly. Pilots recounted the daring maneuvers, the precise strikes, and the calm courage of the human vessel. Commanders detailed how the lone ship had disrupted enemy coordination and created opportunities for the rest of the fleet. Engineers praised the pilot's skill in utilizing the ship's systems to their fullest potential. Every story emphasized the same lesson. One individual, one vessel, could change the outcome of the entire battle. The alien survivors, now drifting away from the battlefield, would carry a very different story. Their reports were filled with confusion, fear, and disbelief. How could one ship, so small and alone, dismantle what their entire fleet had failed to protect? It was a question they could not answer, and one that would forever alter their understanding of human capabilities. Back in the human fleet, the pilot finally allowed a moment of stillness. The battle was over, the fleet was secure, and humanity had proven itself in a way few could have imagined. It was a moment of reflection, a quiet acknowledgement of the courage and skill that had shaped the outcome. There were no accolades, no ceremonies, yet the victory spoke for itself. Humanity had prevailed, and one vessel had done the impossible. As the human fleet prepared to move onward, the story of the lone vessel spread quickly. Pilots shared the experience across communications. Commanders reported it to higher authorities, and engineers passed on technical analysis of the maneuvers. The battle had been more than a physical fight. It had been a lesson in courage, strategy, and determination. The quiet moments after the battle were filled with reflection. Humans shared stories, checked on one another, and prepared for what might come next. Even in victory, there was awareness that the galaxy was vast and new challenges would appear. But the knowledge remained. Skill, focus, and bravery could make the impossible possible. For the pilot of the vessel, there was a sense of satisfaction, not pride. The mission had been accomplished, the battle won, and the fleet safe. Every movement had been precise, every strike effective, and the outcome secured. History would remember this action, and the pilot would know quietly and personally that courage and skill had changed the course of events forever. As the fleet moved on, leaving the wreckage behind, humanity had not only survived, but had achieved a victory that would be remembered across the galaxy. One vessel, small and determined, had entered the battle and ended it instantly. The story would inspire generations of humans, pilots, and strategists. It was a reminder that even in the darkest hour, courage, skill, and focus could turn the tide. In the stillness of space, the lone vessel moved forward, vigilant but calm, a symbol of what humanity could achieve. And as the stars stretched endlessly around them, the galaxy would remember the day one human vessel entered a battle and ended it with unmatched precision, bravery, and determination.